Sounds like you, just like a lot, like the 200 kids that are on the call, maybe you're kind of waking up having the same type of mindset, like using social media to get like ideas on what to do, Zoom meetings like this with other people that you know. It sounds like a lot, like almost everybody is kind of in the same boat, and knowing that a top end player, pro player like yourself is kind of waking up with the same type of mindset a lot of these young kids are, to try to keep themselves busy.
Absolutely, and I think for me, it's very bittersweet because I was so excited to make the move to the PLL, and we had the big announcement, and we shot the video and the press release and all the media, and it's been a long year and a half to get to that point because I did miss out on the first year, and now I'm kind of back in purgatory again, where whether the season's going to happen is up in the air. So. Like I said, it's just you can't really think about whether it is or going to happen, whether it's going to happen or not. All I'm really concerned about right now is thinking that it's going to happen, and when it does happen, that I'll be ready to go. And a lot of us are in the same page, so I think it's important to not think that it's just you that are going through it. I'm getting a lot of emails, a lot of messages, and I try and answer as many as I can, but a lot of it's very individual focused, and I think we have to look at this as a lacrosse community as a whole. Certainly, if we're going to stick to our sport. And say, listen, we're all in this together. We all missed an NCAA college season. We all missed the high school season or a spring season. We all did, and not just you and not just your team. So I think it's important to realize that you have the lacrosse community is a very tight community. We're all very close, and it's important to resort to that community now more than ever to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're all in this together.
So, you mentioned that you're working out twice a day, okay? And so you're doing a lot of, and by the way, I follow you on Instagram with your trainer, all right? I see what you do. There's a couple exercises I need to talk to you about. But anyways, a lot of these kids are just training. Like Mike said, they're training for their high school seasons to start back up again if that happens, or they're training for the summer. Walk us through a day in the life of you right now during this COVID-19 shelter in place, of like what your regimen is like, because I think it'd be great for these kids to hear that.
Sure. So my morning starts. I wake up, and I'm usually not a breakfast person, but this has made me a breakfast person. I start out with a smoothie or something just to get something in my stomach, and just because I have been doing so much that I find myself getting so hungry later in the day, and I don't like to eat when I go closer to bed. So started drinking smoothies in the morning, and every now and then my mom will make me some eggs, but it starts there. And then I've been doing pretty much daily workouts on my Instagram, about 20 to 30 minutes for whoever wants to join in and do it with me live. That for me it's a workout. They're tough, and it's also a warm up to my day and gets my blood flowing. I actually didn't do it today, and I kind of felt out of sorts. So that's the first thing on the day. And then after that, I usually do some of my work, whatever I have going on, and then head to the field. I've been lucky to find a field that hasn't got rid of their nets yet. And, there's really no one up there that much, so I can social distance and get my shots in. And that for me has been really important, just to be able to get out a little bit. And I'm a very active person, so being in a house all day is not ideal. So to have somewhere where I can go and be pretty private is important. And that there I go through my shooting workouts. A lot of stuff that I do in the game is pretty much what I've been practicing. And it's all the stuff that I've been learning since I was these guys' age. Nothing's really changed in that regard. I'll get some sprint work in, some speed work. I've been doing some different challenges, mental challenges with regards to working out if I have access to a track or something. Just to push myself a little bit. And then when I come back home later at night, depending how I feel, I'll usually get like a lightweight session in with a kettlebell or some 35-pound dumbbells, just to make sure I'm maintaining some of my strength since I don't have access to a gym. So that's kind of been it. And I would say it's at least 2, maybe 3 workouts a day. Yesterday was 3. Today was 2, or will be 2 in a little while. So, it changes from day to day. I think the coolest thing though is getting my mom involved with me a little bit, and some of my other friends and family through Instagram or through other methods, just to get them on board and start working out when they hadn't really done that in the past.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. You might even say that during this time, you can even have more opportunity to work out more, just with all the free time.
100%. And I think that's kind of what I was saying as far as, I know the players still have schoolwork to do, and that's important. But, at the same time, you're not going to school, you're not coming home. So it does leave a lot of time. And I think if you're using that time the right way, you could really come out of this in this kind of period of time, which we don't know how long it is, but you really come out of it in a good place. And I think there's a lot of players around the country that maybe aren't taking full advantage of it. Maybe they're playing Call of Duty or something like that all day. So I think if you can get, 2 or 3 times the normal amount of practice that you normally get in a given day or a given week, by default, you should be getting better. And I think I see a lot of young players taking advantage of that, and I think they'll find themselves in a great position.
So switching gears here a little bit, you grew up in Long Island, right? You went to Smithtown. From everything that I've read on you and followed you in your career, you were under recruited, and you decided to take a PG year at Deerfield. Can you talk a little bit about taking that extra year? What was your decision process with that? Because I know a lot of kids right now are, thinking about taking an extra year or doing a repeat year or something like that. How much that benefit you or it didn't benefit you? And talk about just being under recruited in that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a great topic of conversation right now, and one that I've had with a few people because of that reason, losing a season. For me, it was everything. I wouldn't have played I wouldn't have went to Cornell. I may not even have played Division I lacrosse if I hadn't done it. So as someone who was kind of under recruited, a little smaller to develop, challenged physically in my earlier years, it was a no-brainer I didn't really know much about it. So it all happened very quickly. I wish I had, and I think a more popular route nowadays are kids repeating their junior year and then doing their junior and senior year somewhere else. And I think that would have been an ideal situation. A postgraduate year, what I did is great, and it allows you to mature. And if you can decide that, far enough in advance, you'll have the benefits of recruiting and allowing coaches to look at you. But I think repeating your junior year and spending 2 years at a place, if you're thinking about that, is better than one, because you're going to just get more acclimated there. You're going to meet, a group of friends and just get to know them better. I was kind of in and out, and it kind of in the blink of an eye, the year was over. And I look back, and Deerfield was such a special place. And, I'm not sure that I really took full advantage of it or had the time to, because, don't get me wrong, it's a great school, and I, prepared me for Cornell academically, but I was there to get looked at so that I could go play lacrosse somewhere. And that was my mindset. So I recommend it for everyone. And I think if you're not sure with what you want to do, or, the school you want to go to, if you're not being recruited, at the end of the day, if your family can, afford to put you through that, or you can make it work, it's a great option to have, because it does allow you just an extra year to become more of a man. And, everyone's different in the way they mature, but I wasn't that athlete. I put 15 pounds on when I was in my PG year, which is a lot, comparative to what I would have been a freshman year in college, playing against some of the best players in the world. So it was a big year for me. And it also, confidence-wise, did a lot for me. And, more than anything, building confidence, going there and performing prior to going to Cornell, it just kind of gave me this little jolt and that I needed. And, I'm very lucky how it worked out.
Wasn't there an interesting chain of events of somebody recommended it, you decided to do that, and then all of a sudden Cornell, like I heard, I don't know, I can't tell it. I heard that. I heard an interesting story about that.
Yeah. So I didn't know I was going to Deerfield until about 2 weeks before school started. It was a very stressful summer. I pretty much I was supposed to go to Quinnipiac, and I told them that I wasn't coming. And, I had 70 points my junior year, and I had 130 points my senior year. So I could see myself growing and becoming a different player. And I wanted to just make sure I was sure, and that I was all in on playing at the highest level that I could. So when I told Quinnipiac that I wasn't coming, I didn't have any options. It wasn't like I could. I signed a national letter of intent, so I couldn't look at any scholarship schools. I didn't have a prep school to go to either. So I kind of was just like, all right, I'm not going to Quinnipiac. That was kind of what that did. I went up to Deerfield. They had one bed left in the school for a postgraduate basketball player, and they asked if I played basketball, and I played point guard. And I went there and started in point guard, and we made the playoffs for the first time in 5 years, and that's how I got into Deerfield. While I was there, I was talking to Ivy League schools. I was talking to Brown, Harvard, Penn, and that was it. That was 3 at the time. And on both days, Brown and Penn told me they couldn't take me. They were interested, but they weren't sold on me, and they weren't going to really push to get me in through admissions. Harvard was kind of just stringing me along and never really gave me a yes or no. And my buddy was there, so the coach was talking to him, and he was telling me what he was saying. I was Coach Tillman at the time, and I like Coach Tillman. I think he's a great coach, but he was wrong about me. So I had no one at one point, and then out of nowhere, Cornell kind of called me based on some guys there some guys at Deerfield going to their recruiting visit, a couple people that I know calling him, and he watched the highlight tape. Coach Zambroni watched the highlight tape that he had on his desk, and next thing you know, called me up. I called my parents because it was a pretty stressful, emotional process. I called them, and they're like, "Okay, we'll be there tomorrow. We'll pick you up. We're going to Cornell." And I think the following Tuesday, Coach Zambroni called me and said they chose me over another guy, and he'd like me to commit. And I called my mom, and she's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I was like, "Well, I have no other options, so I guess Cornell it is." And I called Coach back, and that was that. And that was about November. That was November, I want to say 3rd of 2007. So it wasn't like I had a place to go going into prep school. I was still there for a few months thinking, like, why am I here? No one's talking to me. I'm not really figuring this out. So it was a stressful process, but I think it worked out for the best. And I say, I joke with my Cornell coaches, and they're like, I say I'm very lucky to have Cornell reached out, and they were pretty lucky to find me too. So,
so it sounds like you were pretty much a late bloomer, and some of these kids don't develop, or these younger players, they don't develop into their, senior, maybe freshman year of college. Would you say that was kind of like you as well?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I was always a smaller guy, wasn't the fastest. I definitely wasn't the quickest, the strongest. But I love lacrosse, and I always prided myself on having the best skills. And my dad was an athlete. He played football and baseball at Brown, so he understood what it took to get to a high level. And from an early age, he harped on the skill side of the sport. He's like, listen, your left hand needs to be as good as your right. And if that's what if you want to play this sport, and if you're going to be the size that you are, this is what you need to do. You got to be able to go both hands and not even think about it. So from an early age, I really was very detail oriented when it came to the skill side of the sport, whether it was lefty and righty, whether it was my footwork in dodges, whether it was stick work or stick positioning. I really, I could see myself in my backyard walking through certain dodges and dodging certain, lawn chair or whatever it was, and doing it step by step, and then going a little faster and a little faster after that. And it paid off, because when I was a late bloomer, but when I did hit that growth spurt, I had this skill set in place that was better than most people. So when I look back, I know a lot of guys and a lot of players, and I'm sure a lot of people on this Zoom know the kid that dominates when he's younger, but doesn't have to work on certain skill side of his game because he just runs by everybody, or is stronger than everybody. I have a lot of friends like that, and a lot of guys that were heavily recruited and didn't have to work on other parts of their game. And next thing you know, they're recruited to play as a midi, and they can't shoot both hands, and in college they're switched to a pole, or whatever it is. And I was able to, once I hit my growth spurt, just kind of get to that level where I was with them, and then I just kept going past them, because I just kept working, on myself physically, which is why I put such an emphasis on working out, is because I really think it's been the biggest part of my game, into college and into the pros, allow me to get to that next level. But I believe that's because I really invested in the skill side of the sport when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Obviously, we do teams. I mean, sometimes we have 8th graders that don't make the A team, and they're like, well, why am I even playing lacrosse like this anymore? And obviously somebody like yourself, developing and getting better, going into your senior year. I mean, by nowadays, it's like kids, I feel like sophomore, junior year, they don't make the A team. They want to give up on it. Obviously, it kind of proves, that being a late bloomer is somebody that is able to grow and have that drive to continue to play and push themselves is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And just real quick, like when I was growing up, the club scene wasn't what it was. There were 2 club programs on Long Island. It was Team Long Island and Long Island Metro, both of which, Long Island Metro doesn't exist and Team Long Island might, but I didn't make those club programs for 2 or 3 years in like a pivotal point, like in middle school. And I finally made it. And when I made it, we ended up playing for like a summer. And then, our 2 in my high school team, we started our own club program, and we went around and played in the tournaments together because there still weren't that many. My younger brother was on the first ever Express team. So that was like, got around a little after me. I got cut from varsity as a freshman and split time as a sophomore. And the only reason I split time as a sophomore was because I had a left hand. So it was those things that I really, had to, it weren't, I had to push through it because it was frustrating. There were some tears shed. I was young and not as mature and my parents took a big hit of it too, but at the same time, they were very positive with me and they believed in me. They continued to drive me to practices. I went to summer camps while kids were playing in tournaments and practicing with their travel teams. And I just invested in myself and in my skills. And I stayed true to that, and it paid off eventually. And I don't think I would be here if those things didn't happen. And I certainly wouldn't be here if I didn't invest a lot of my own time into my individual development. And also just, understanding the game.
Now, you talked about some of the schools you were looking at, Cornell, obviously, Brown, Harvard. These are some high-level academic schools.
Yep.
Obviously, all Ivy League schools. How much did academics play in a role of which school you really wanted to go to? Was that a heavy thing for you?
It wasn't. My dream school was University of Virginia. Connor Gill was my favorite player growing up, and I drove through Virginia, going on a trip when I was younger. And
my brother went there.
Yeah. Thought it was beautiful. And I was like, yeah, this is a place I want to go. And it was my dream school, watch them in the Final Four and the championship. I would have loved to go ACC or, now the Big Ten. I wanted to go to a lacrosse school. And I never looked at the Ivy Leagues as lacrosse schools, which is, this year 3 were in the top 5. And we were in the top 5 every year I was there at Cornell. But I never looked at them as lacrosse schools. Max Seaball is my best friend, and I didn't really like watching Max in college. I was like, I wanted Duke to beat Cornell in the Final Four. I wasn't rooting for Cornell. So I didn't. My friends, my best friend went to Harvard from Smithtown, and he had his eyes set on Harvard his whole life. He's like, I want to go to Harvard. I want to play lacrosse there. My other buddy wanted to go Ivy, and he didn't. But like my friends wanted to do that. I was like, I want to go to the best lacrosse school. I want to win a national championship. And sure enough, I went to Cornell, and I was playing in the national championship my freshman year, starting on attack, and I had the best of both worlds. But my dad was always big on academics. He went to Brown. His whole family, very intelligent. So like I was afraid to bring home a B, and eventually I brought home the first one, and I eased him into it. But I did very well in high school. I was in honors classes and APs, and I did my job academically, and I'm glad I did, because if I didn't, I don't think I wouldn't have been able to get into Cornell. But it wasn't an issue for me with my GPA and my SAT scores to, when Cornell came, they looked at them and they said, we can work with this. I wasn't getting in on my own, but the combo was good, and lacrosse and academics. So I'm very thankful that my family's put such an emphasis on it, because I wouldn't have if I slacked off just a little bit, I wouldn't have been able to go to Cornell.
Now, Coach Tambroni recruited you, but Ben DeLuca coached you, right?
I had Tambroni for 2 years and DeLuca for 3.
Yeah, and I was reading you have a really good bond with DeLuca, and now he's the head coach at Delaware. Can you tell us a little bit about what Cornell Lacrosse meant to you and how much you loved college lacrosse?
Yeah. I mean, Cornell is the best, and I'm obviously I spent 4.5 years there, and I'm very biased in that opinion. But I do think, I have friends enough that play at different places. I have my brother who played at UVA, and I know enough about other programs to make my judgments responsibly, and we just do things a different way, and we don't get the best lacrosse players. I wasn't supposed to be as good as I was at Cornell, and I was there, and a lot of guys that that have good careers are not big time recruits. If you look at the top recruiting classes every year, but we pride ourselves, and you see a lot of schools now carry around hard hats or lunch pails or whatever it is, and I believe that started at Cornell. And if everyone on this call gets a chance to read the book, The Hard Hat, it's about Cornell Lacrosse and why we are the way that we are. But we kind of just established that blue collar Ivy mentality, and that we were going to outwork everybody. And that's when we were going to start to have success. And we did. If it was snowing outside in Ithaca, I can count on one hand the amount of times we practiced indoors over my 4.5 years. And it snows a lot and it's cold. But it was part of becoming mentally tough and outworking our opponent. And we did that. So that, game day, and people may have heard me say this, but game day was a day off. It was a day off for us. I'm not joking about that. We worked so hard in practice and in the weight room, and we pushed each other and we competed, that when a game day came, it was a day off. And I couldn't wait for Friday walkthrough and game day, because it was just like, all right, just got to take a break. But everything from when you're there to, they shape you into the person that you become. They teach you life lessons that are, not only great for lacrosse, but they're going to allow you to be successful in work. And we have an extremely tight group of alumni that, stay, if you're close when you're at school, you're even closer when you're out of school. And, we have 40 guys wake up at 4:30 the Tuesday before Thanksgiving to run a turkey trot in New York City. And it's just like, that's what we did when we were at school, and we continued that tradition to New York City. And it's just a special group. And, I'm sure other programs can speak this way as well, but not many. There's not many that have a tradition of success and, Final Fours and national championships. And it's a special place, and we have a lot of special people. And I'm not the person that I am today without Cornell Lacrosse and starting with Coach Tambroni for 2 years and going to 2 Final Fours and a national championship with him. And then Coach DeLuca, where, we were a top 5 team in the country for the remaining years. They shaped us into the men that we are. And, the longer I'm away from the place, away from Ithaca, the more I appreciate it. And the more I look forward to going back when I do get the chance. And it's a special place to me, and I really love everything about Cornell. And obviously, we won a lot of games, so that made it great as well. If we had lost and not made Final Fours and tournaments, I don't know how I'd be speaking about it. But we did that. We won games for a reason. We worked extremely hard, and we did our job in school and on the field, and we were a very tight team, and I think that led to the success that we had.
I think a lot of kids over the course of either high school, when they go on to play in college, they might run into a similar type of situation where there's a coaching change at a school, and that transition to a different coach sometimes it's tough for kids. Sometimes it's not the ideal candidate. But you know, if you wouldn't mind kind of just talking about, because obviously that was between the couple of years that you were there, and how maybe you reacted, the team reacted to something like that. Because a lot of times when that gets announced, I remember when Tambroni left, that was huge announcement, like in the lacrosse world, and how maybe the team and yourself kind of reacted to that.
Yeah, I was one of the first 5 guys to know, actually, because Coach T ran a camp in Minnesota, and I was working it for him. And he, I guess, had just gotten the job at Penn State while we were there. So as you know, last day he told us that he was leaving, and I burst into tears because I really loved him, and I love him. You know, I do love him still, and you know, we had a special relationship in 2 years, and we went to the national championship, and we went to a Final Four again when we weren't supposed to do anything, having graduated Max Sebald and John Glenn and those guys, and we went right back there. And I just, for me, as I was, you know, as the guy on the team, I was like, how can you leave when we just did what we just, you know, when I'm going to be a junior, I got 2 more years and I'm just getting started, and we're going to go right back to where we were. You know, how could you leave this and leave Cornell and everything that we talk about? But I was a sophomore in college, and I reacted emotionally at the time. You know, after a few weeks and now years, I understand that he has to do what's best for him and his family ultimately. So, you know, Coach Tambroni had an unbelievable run at Cornell for 10 years. You know, I believe it was 10 straight Ivy League championships and 10 straight NCAA tournaments. It's pretty unbelievable, and we had a lot of success. And he coached 2 Thornton winners, and you know, I can't. You know, I would have loved to have had him for 4 years, sure. But you know what? Coach DeLuca is an assistant coach. I had a great relationship with him at the time as well, and that relationship became even better. And he was a father figure, like me, you know, to me, away from home. And you know, I'll say this: you know, you could be as close with your coach as you choose to be. I was looking forward to having those captains meetings with Coach Tambroni, because I would see the guys in there my freshman and sophomore year and be like, I can't wait to have that relationship with him. You know, I have so much respect for the guy. Then when Coach DeLuca, you know, came on, it was the same thing. You know, I can't wait to have these meetings with him where, you know, the first question wasn't about lacrosse. It was, how are you? How are you doing? How is academics? How's your family? What's going on? How's your relationships? You know, and then we talked about lacrosse, and we built this respect for each other over a period of time where if I didn't like something that was going on or I disagreed, I would let him know, and he would respect that, and he would, you know, he would take that and he would let me make a decision at times. But it's tough. But know that, you know, I think if you do have those coaching changes for any players that are on here, you have to understand, and while it may not be what's best for you, or what you think is best for you, it's really a decision that your coach has made for his family. And one day you'll be making those decisions for your family. And you know, I couldn't be happier for Coach Tambroni and what he's done with Penn State. And obviously still a big fan of his and love him. But you know, he then gave Coach DeLuca the opportunity, and you know, my 5th year, we were back in the Final Four. So everything happens for a reason. You know, sometimes it doesn't, you don't see, you know, the writing on the wall, but you know, years down the line, you can really understand why things happen. And now DeLuca's at Delaware. So Coach Millman's great at Cornell, and I was actually up there. Max Sebald and I drove up there when we were trying to get him to become the assistant coach with Coach DeLuca. So I've known him for quite some years. And then Jordan Stevens and Connor Busick, you know, they wouldn't have had, if this didn't happen, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to be there. Jordan lives 2 blocks away from me in Smithtown, or that's where he grew up at least. And he's the assistant coach, the associate head coach, and Busick I played with as well. So I played with both of them at Cornell. I've known Jordan for a while, and that's really special for me now to go back to them, having played with them and known that I've had an influence on them, and now they're having an influence on so many other, you know, Cornellians. So
we have about 10 minutes here left, Rob, and
we can go 15 at least.
Right,
yeah.
Cool. So Pro Lacrosse, back when Mike and I played in the MLL, it was kind of like a weekend warrior type of thing. All right, now it's kind of turned into, hey, you can potentially do this on on a full-time basis. Can you talk about a little bit where Pro Lacrosse is going? Obviously, you've made the move from the MLL to the PLL. That's very exciting. But yeah, just talk about like how are players, professional players, approaching Pro Lacrosse nowadays?
It's amazing to see the change from which I can't believe I'm going into my 8th year. Pretty crazy to think about. But when I first came in to now, it's just the amount of time that guys are investing in themselves and really just taking their game to the next level from 2013 to 2020. You just see it. And I think the product on field is that much better. I think we all have this thing in our head that, everyone loves college lacrosse, and it's and when you're in college, you think that of professional lacrosse, like, it's just pro lacrosse, college lacrosse is the highest level. But then when you're in it and you see how much guys care for this game and what they're doing, laying their bodies on the line every weekend and traveling, leaving their families just to compete and be around you, you really see how much it means to us as players. And it's the best lacrosse in the world. I mean, you can't argue that the guys that are playing in the PLL on a given weekend, any given game, it is the best lacrosse you'll ever see, and it's the best players. So guys have really invested and started to really kind of put aside those jobs after college and say, okay, how can I make this work for a few years where I can really invest into professional lacrosse, whether it's coaching, whether it's, doing the instructional side of things like I do. And then obviously with the help of endorsements and whatnot, being able to kind of piece it together and invest in pro lacrosse. And then you look at the PLL has done is now giving us benefits as players and paying us more money and really assisting us in allowing to do that so that the product on field can be that much better. And, for the first time in my 8 years, with the PLL, I'll have benefits and, I won't be paying for my own health insurance and, you'll be treated like a professional on the weekends and, first class venues. And it's getting to the point where it's become, it's at the point where it's where we've all dreamed of it being. And we've invested so much time over the years and guys before us like you that went through that, right? And we're like, okay, we love playing lacrosse. That's why we're here. But now, we love it. And, we're really trying to make a full-time job of it. And, very lucky with what the PLL has done with Paul and Mike and having a vision and investing in us as players and in our brands and understanding that in 2020, it's a different world and it's a different way that people view sports and athletes. And we need to create individual brands. We need to create stories. And you can do that over social media and you can build up a following. And I think you see that with what the PLL has done in 1 year. I mean, it was the most frustrating thing for me to not be part of that for that past summer, seeing how much everyone was just posting on social media, the coverage it was getting, all the kids, how much they were loving it. Every single post that I put up, why aren't you in the PLL? It's just like, it was just a tough summer, but I'm excited to be part of it now. And, professional lacrosse is certainly on the uptrend. And, we're doing things that other sports aren't doing. With regards to on-field interviews, mic'd up during a game, and it's crazy. And the coverage that we're getting, and thanks to the support of all the fans out there, has been awesome. And I can't wait to be a part of it.
Now, for an 8th grade kid that's out there playing and has dreams of playing professional lacrosse,
love it. That's me.
Obviously, the PLL just started here, and it seems like a phenomenal product and a phenomenal brand. Where do you think it could be in 10 years? I mean, are we talking something like MLS, NBA, something along those lines? Could it get there? Do you guys feel it could get there?
Yeah, we definitely feel that it can get there. And I think because we've just invested so much, and a lot of it is going to be up to those 8th graders. I was that 8th grader. When I was growing up, 2001, I think, or 2000 was the inaugural MLL season. And I was going to the, what was it, Team Coca-Cola versus Team Bud Light games. It was green versus red and on Long Island. And then the first 4 teams, I became a Lizards fan. I went to all the games. I was like, I want to play for the Lizards one day. And sure enough, I spent 7 years on the Lizards. So it's really cool to see that. So I think it's going to be a lot about the talent and, do those kids want to invest in our sport? Do they want to stay playing and playing at the highest level and push themselves to continue to be their very best? Because at the end of the day, regardless of, how much coverage you get or the, social media, X, Y, and Z, people are going to want to see the best players play. And, I think you see it this year, and it's unfortunate with what's going on. There's bigger problems in the world, but this senior class in college was so highly touted that everyone was looking to get them, was looking forward to see them in the pros. Now they're going to have to wait a year. Some of the guys are coming out, like Grant Ament, but I think if the players, these kids will see what pro lacrosse is becoming. And I think as they continue to play, they're going to want to be a part of that more. And that's how I think it's going to be sustainable.
So you've played with a lot of great players. I mean, you could probably name thousands of great players you've played with. Who is your favorite guy to play with? Right.
For what reason? From a
teammate
standpoint, or like a playing standpoint?
Playing teammate, just a guy you're like, this is a guy I want to go to battle with.
Yeah. I'll name a few.
Yeah.
Going back to college, Max Sebald, and I speak about him a lot just because the influence that he's had on me. My locker was next to him my freshman year, and he was a solo captain. He was a Tewaaraton winner that year, his best player in the country, and I watched him and watched his every move, and I was like, I want to get to where he is, and I want what he has. So for him, he didn't look at himself like that, though. He was a selfless teammate. He was the hardest worker out there, and he did anything for his team to win. So he from college standpoint, he was my guy, and we even played together in the pros for a few years. There's the teammate guys that are just like on the team, on the sideline, and or that just are always positive. Jojo Marasco is one of those guys for me that, whenever I come off the field, he just comes up to me. He's like, how you doing? What's going on? He's smiling, laughing. Even if we're down by 5 or up by 5, his attitude's the same. And I think that's really unique. And he's always encouraging guys, never negative, which is a big thing. Negativity could ruin a team real quick. And he's, if you have enough positive guys, they'll cancel that out. There's a lot of, Will Manny is a guy that I just love playing with. He's off-ball guy from a playing standpoint. The guy never stops moving. And, we had 2 years together in New York, and they were special years. And then, there's a lot of D middies that are just great team guys, and they're guys that get down and get down and dirty, and they'll do anything for you. They'll be the first one in a scuffle, and they're just hard blue collar workers. I think Kevin Understein is one of my favorite guys that I've played with on New York, and he's on the Atlas too, and he's on Team USA. Steve DiNapoli is another one of those guys. But they're just they're team guys, and they don't care about anything they're doing. They're willing to do the stuff that no one wants to do because they want to win and they want to do their job. So those are a few of them. I mean, there's so many out there. I'm probably missing some guys, but those are a few that jump out. And
what about defensemen? Who's the toughest defenseman you've had to go against?
I break it up by level. And so Chad Wiedemeyer is in college. We always had our battles, Princeton, Cornell, and we came in as freshmen. So we went after it. We got after it quite a bit. And then, Tucker Durkin in the pros is probably over my 7 years, the toughest guy that I've had to go against, just because of his combination of speed and agility and strength. If you look at the Maryland guys too, Matt Dunn and, those guys are all excellent as well, and promote, there's some tough matchups. And then, Graham Hossack on who plays for Team Canada, and I think he's the indoor defensive player of the year. He's one of the best that I've ever gone against. And maybe it's just because it's the USA Canada and we're just so dialed in, but he's a lot like Durkin in his like speed and his strength, and always a tough matchup for me. So, you know, when those guys are on me, I'm looking to do a little 2-man game, maybe get a switch.
Well, I have 2 more questions for you, then we'll let you go. You know, one of my opinion, just watching you play and watching you on film, one of your greatest attributes is your footwork behind the cage. You also see the field very well, and partly one of the reasons you're able to see the field is you're able to draw a slide. You know, a lot of times when you get the ball. Can you talk a little bit about how important footwork is to an offensive player, and talk about how important it is to be able to create separation from your man to be able to make things happen on a lacrosse field and create? So.
Yeah, no, for me, it's everything. And, you know, the footwork that I do is simply just reps. And it was, as I mentioned earlier, walking through these dodges in my backyard and making sure that my stick placement is in the right place and my feet are going in the right direction. I'm not taking any false steps. But once you do that and you have the split dodges, the roll dodges, the rockers, the hesitations, you know, a lot of my practice, you know, is I don't even want to, you know, I'll go practice with a buddy and I'm like, dude, I don't even want to shoot today. I'm going to throw a bag of balls behind the goal. You stay up top and I'm just going to work on, I'm just freestyling behind the goal, you know, split, roll, rocker, you know, Z dodge, and just working on my footwork and freeing my hands, you know, to make that pass, you know, once I get above the goal. So as I like to say, you know, change speeds, change directions every 2 to 3 seconds. If you're a dodging player, that's what you need to be doing. Because you have to keep your defenseman on edge. If he's thinking about throwing checks, then you're going to be in trouble. You want him to be thinking about what you're doing next, not about what he's doing. So by keeping him on edge with those changes in speed and change in direction, I've always prided myself on the assist. My dad told me that, you know, goal and an assist are both 1 point, and I took that to heart. So while people now look at me like a goal scorer, that's only because people don't slide as much anymore. So I got to get there. But growing up, it was all about drawing the double and moving it for me. And a lot of that had to do with playing with your head up. So from a young age, I always loved playing, you know, loved assisting, and I always had my head up. And once again, these were things that were just harped on by my dad, and things that I just continue to practice. So if you can get used to, you know, a lot of kids dodge with their head down and they're looking at their footwork, but if you can work on your footwork and work on these dodges to where you don't have to think about it and your head can be up, seeing what's in front of you and seeing your teammates and what's developing, then you're going to be, you know, put yourself in a position for success. The other part of that is playing to your defenseman, right? You're getting into him, you're getting out to him, you're getting out. A lot of players will wait for the defenseman to create contact with them. I want to create contact with the defenseman so that I can get that initial shove and that initial push. Whereas, you know, the times where I watch film with me, or you watch a defenseman doing clips of film against me, is when, you know, I don't get that contact at goal line extended or a little above, and he's getting that contact and he's able to drive me out to an area that I don't want to be. So all my footwork is you know, stay as close to the crease as possible. And then when you start to push that goal line extended, know that defender is going to want to create contact with you. So beat him to that so you don't get pushed off your path. But it's all reps. It's all kind of just going out in the backyard, freestyling and working on different moves, and doing it frequently, you know, every 2 to 3 seconds. You know, pride yourself on getting to the area of the field that you want to get to. Don't get pushed out to somewhere you don't want to get pushed out to.
You know, the last question, and then I'm going to talk about the camp you guys are going to be doing out here. But, you know, you got all these young kids out here. They're aspiring to be like you, okay? They want to get to where you've gotten. Any final advice you can just give these kids and just tell them, hey, you know, this is what I think you need to do to take it to the next level?
Yep. Control the controllable. That's my number one thing. You know, a lot of you players out there, you know, younger, middle school, even high school, you can't control how big, tall, fast, strong you're going to be. Not to the extent that you can control how great your stick work is, or how skilled, how accurate your shot is, your footwork with dodging. You can control all of that. That's simply just hard work and putting in the time. harping on the other things is not going to do anything for you. You're going to waste time thinking about it. You're going to feel sorry for yourself. So for me, it was always controlling the controllable and working on the things that were going to make me a better player. And also with that, always evaluating myself as a player. I think that's the one thing that I did really well in college was from year to year. Until now, I should say until now, I've been able to increase my level of play each and every year. If you look at my bio or my history, and from freshman year to sophomore year to junior to senior year, my fifth year, and then in the pros from my first year to, my seventh year, each and every year I've been able to get better or been able to at least maintain being at the level that I'm at, that few guys were at. So that's evaluating myself as a player and being like, okay, this is what I didn't do well last year, and this is what I need to do better this year, whether it's shooting accuracy, whether it's being stronger, whether it's being more, lighter and faster or quicker. I've had to make adjustments and on the fly with that. And the last thing I'll say is, if you want to be the best, or you want to be as best as you can be, because don't worry about being better than anybody else. Worry about being your best. You have to be consistent. And I can honestly say that I have consistently pushed myself to be my very best from, high school. Really, I'm looking at, when I became Rob Pannell, but, when you look at high school and working to get to that point, but then college, when I started to have success or success in the eyes of others, I consistently worked. I did not miss a workout when our strength coach left us with a packet for winter break or the summer. I did not miss a workout. My mom would laugh at me. She'd be like, it's Thanksgiving or it's Christmas. Why are you going to the gym? I was like, because no one else is. And I was like, it's because when I'm scoring goals or having assists on game day, this is going to be why. So I've consistently worked as hard as I could to be my best over this period of time. And if you want to be, the best players perform consistently, in my opinion. Anybody can do it for a week. Anybody can do it for a game. But you want to do it for 10, 15 years, that's another story.
Well, Rob, we can't thank you enough for getting on. I know we've talked about and we've planned for you to come out here and do a camp with Grant Ammett. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. First,
I probably get it wrong. I'm close to them. I probably say it wrong. I don't even know.
And you guys will be out here August 3rd to the 5th to do a camp in Chicago.
Yes,
so we're really excited about that. And I know a lot of these players who are on the Zoom call, they're going to be at the camp and going to be really excited to see you. But like I said, I mean, the advice you've given us on this call and everything that you've talked to about your career and how you've dealt with adversity and where you are today, I mean, it's awesome. We can't thank you enough for getting on. This was great.
No, thank you guys. And, I'm looking forward to my first trip out your way for our first Attack Academy camp. If you guys on here want to get a little head start, Grant and I have A3 Lacrosse app, which is on the App Store. And we got some free drills on there that you guys can put to work, get a head start on camp. But we're looking forward to being there. We're on the field. We're in it with you guys every day. So it's going to be a great experience. And very, thank you for making it happen. And it'll be a great few days in August.
Absolutely. Well, I know you have another workout to get to, so we'll let you go. And if you need anything, just give me a call. And thanks again for everybody getting on.
You got, yes. Thank you, everyone. This is great. Have a great night.
Thanks, Rob.